Welcome to the Be Student Podcast, and thank you for joining me. This is a particularly exciting episode for us to film, and I've asked Addison Cursey to be with us today because she's been such a big part of the success of this podcast. This is season 2 of the Be Student Podcast. Now, here's why this is important. Only 47% of podcasts make it past the first 3 episodes. You all went 27 episodes deeper with us into making us one of the best performing podcasts in the world and certainly one of the fastest growing on YouTube. And we want to thank you for your partnership in engaging with the people and the stories and the themes that we're exploring on this podcast. So thank you for being a subscriber, a viewer, a listener. We can't believe we've reached this milestone. And of course, we've done this together with a great team at Hi Hello Labs and my team at the Chamber. And Addison Cursey, who will be leaving her role officially at the Winter Park Chamber as our Chief Marketing Officer, I've convinced her to stay on as our resident correspondent about what's going on in the minds of young professionals in the workplace. Right, Addie?
Yes, you have.
Yeah, so she'll stay with us. But why I think this podcast is growing and working, it's been a question I've asked myself for a long time, because we started out with, why in the world would anyone want to watch a podcast hosted by me? And I don't think it's about me. I think it's about the people that we bring into our world. And I think it's about something even more powerful than that. We hear from young professionals all the time that there are not enough mentorship opportunities out there, or if they're out there, it's too opaque about how to figure out how to unlock the power of those potential partnerships through mentorship. And what we've done on this podcast is introduce you to senior leaders, to groundbreaking thinkers, to successful entrepreneurs, to people who've in some way made it. And we're delivering that mentorship for our listeners and viewers at scale. So whether or not you're new to your career, you're advanced in your career, there are things that our master practitioners of the B side of everyone's record that's on this podcast are doing that can help us all be more effective. I learned something in every episode that I can take back to my life. And I actually appreciate the ways these 30 episodes have helped me flex and develop my curiosity muscle. So I want to say thank you. And I want to say how proud we are to deliver something that you find valuable. And we're going to continue through your comments and your input to shape the content that matters to you. So thank you for being on this journey with us. I brought Addie in today because not only has she been a leading voice to the best performing episodes, and we do keep track of which episodes are the best performing, she really is, catnip for you guys. Whenever she's on, you're tuning in. But equally, this was part of her vision along with Stephanie Biddle, and she has been integral to the success of this. But I think part of the dialogue that we've started on this podcast around how to navigate across the generations is striking a chord with people. Talk to everybody about your experience of this podcast this past year and what it's been like to kind of launch and be part of a successful podcast.
Well, I have absolutely loved being on this journey, and it took us a while to have the confidence to do this, to be willing to take a risk to put ourselves out there in a brand new way. And I'm so glad that we did, that we had Stephanie and our team who kept pushing us, that you pushed me to be on my first episode with you. My first answer when you invited me on season 1 was, I don't know if that's for me. And here I am now in season 2 as a regular appearing
guest. I don't know that that's for me, unrelated to the podcast.
And you go, let's circle back in a month. But it has been fantastic. And it's also been a direct expression of the value that I had in my 4 years with the Chamber, which is about meeting people, being connected with mentors, and the thought leaders of our region. Is I've gotten to know them on a deeper level. I've gotten to pick up on their tips and tricks and implement them in my own life. So listening to every episode be recorded, I start putting them into practice that day when I leave the studio. And so many of my peers don't have access, the daily access that I did, to the amazing leaders in our region. And I think that is what has allowed this show to blossom. As you said, it's the mentorship at scale, that you don't have to be in a room with these leaders to learn from them. But the podcast can also be your icebreaker to get to know them more.
Tell us about that, how you've used this, because I think this is a great takeaway, particularly for our young people who share with us, networking is too hard. I don't know how to do it. I'm not naturally extroverted. I don't know what the first thing to say is. So give them the cheat code that you just shared with me.
I got keyed into it the first time that it happened to me on the reverse side is I had someone at one of our events come up to me and say, I saw your episode and you made a great point about this. I'd love to talk with you more about that over coffee. And I went, oh my gosh, look at this cheat code of the way that I know that this person has listened to my episode. They're interested in what I have to say. Of course, I'm saying yes to having a coffee with them. Right. And this can be applied across so many different ways. That's the LinkedIn message of saying, I just watched the episode that you're on. I'd love to connect with you further on what you discussed there. It can also be commenting whenever the chamber shares a reel from the episode or the guest themselves shares it, leave a comment. People are noticing that whenever you say, that was a great insight, I can't wait to apply it, that you are raising your profile, you're raising your personal brand, and it's also a natural icebreaker for you. So whenever you're ready to take this further than just watching that one episode, sharing it with your friends, that you can use this to connect with the mentors that you are looking for in your career.
And we hear all the time that people are hungry for that, right? Because the dream of hybrid and remote work realized is not as great as we all thought it was going to be. We are seeing young people who lack access to day-to-day real-world mentor things, where how many times have I said to you, I want you to come over here and watch this because this is a skill you need to have in your portfolio. That happens because we're IRL. We're in the office, and we have to be because we're in an IRL business. But the reality is that those opportunities for so many people either got disrupted during the pandemic, vanished altogether, or are only part-time opportunities now. And so that formal experience of consistently learning on the job and watching people who've done it before you show you how to do it isn't happening. And what we're seeing is a sense of disconnection and fragmentation, and young professionals that feel like there's rules out there, they just don't know what they are or how you get access to them. Talk about how people can use this podcast besides commenting on the YouTube. But, we know that people who show up on LinkedIn and comment are 3 times more likely to get seen on LinkedIn. So talk again about the power of LinkedIn and how you might be able to connect the dots through this podcast to that.
Yeah. Well, so LinkedIn is your digital networking space. It works in the same way that in-person networking works. And what I've also seen thread through all of the episodes of season 1 is the guests that we have on are expert practitioners at their skill. But what connects all of them is that they always fall back to the basics, that they go back to how am I connecting with people? How am I building trust with people? How am I making sure that my clients, that my team members know I exist, know that I'm paying attention?
Have you top of mind and filed in the right place, right?
And so LinkedIn is a place where you can keep those connections fresh, you can keep engaging with them, and it follows the same rules that in-person networking has. And that's what you can learn across these episodes. It doesn't matter who we've had on, what industry they're in. It comes down to how do they connect with people. And that's also been the success of this podcast, is that we are connecting people with people. And that's where the real magic is. So if you go back and look at any of our episodes from season 1, as you start looking at our episodes in season 2, thinking about what are the basics that they've really mastered in here. I think of an analogy you use all the time, Betsy, that in cooking, I think this came from your grandmother, was that cooking, doing the simplest things correctly, can be the most amazing dish that you could cook.
Well, that I learned from my Italian friend Sylvia in London. But my grandmother, who was very much a grande dame, even though she was only 4'11" when she died, she pulled me aside when I got engaged. And this is during the 90s when everything was very over the top, beaded, lots of tulle, everything. She pulled me aside and she said, remember, dear, simplicity is the hardest thing to achieve. And I was like, I don't think I understand what my grandmother just said, but I'm pretty sure it means don't be tacky, right? But as I've gotten older, I've realized that simplicity is so hard to achieve. In our practice, back when you were at the chamber, we would take a piece of communication and slash it down. We'd take at least 30% out of it so that our messaging would be more simple, more clear, more direct. And it is the hardest thing to achieve. And it's so funny because when we started this podcast, I thought we had to come up with guests that told you things that were so proprietary, you'd never heard about them before. And the reality is that there are themes that are coming through that do speak to the simple. And there are things like, must be present to win, right? Like showing up in real life is very important. You need to go to free networking things. You need to say yes to everything you possibly can, especially when you're starting out in your career. We hear all the time from young people who say, I want to move past being transactional, because Lord knows if you're a young person trying to sell anything, it's awful out there trying to sell something being transactional. People don't want to be a part of a transaction. They want to be part of business relationships. And we hear over and over and over again that people can help us navigate this world of relationships. And that's why we focused on the B side of our guest record, not you're a lawyer, which of course you are, and you're very good at being a lawyer. Why? Because you're loyal, right? And so going deeper and understanding the human side of what makes our guests tick is going back to those basics. Do you have a favorite episode or an episode where you had the biggest aha moment throughout the year? Addie sits in and watches these as they're being taped so that if there's something that is particularly off-piste, we can go back and correct it, which I don't know that we've ever had to do. But our guests will say at the end, was that good? And I'm like, yeah, because Addie didn't stop us, which you would definitely do. But I know that the way you're reacting to the comments or the comments made by the guests, that it's going well. What about for you as an aha or maybe a couple different aha moments?
I mean, we had so many phenomenal episodes. When I think about us doing a live cooking session with Chef Mario Pagan, that was amazing, on site in a kitchen. When we brought Yoni Applebaum, who is the deputy editor of The Atlantic, to come in and talk about the housing crisis that so many people in our community are facing. But for me, the most poignant episode was when we brought on Gary Hughes, who is a trusted friend and photographer in our network. And his lesson was, don't be precious. And that is somebody who I'm very passionate about our brand. With my old team, I would get so granular that they'd be like, oh, she's got her ruler out and doing this. And that is a brand standard that I want to maintain. But when do you let go of that preciousness and say, actually, let's just get this out there. Let's see how people react. Let's see how they engage, and dropping my ego around those. That's, I think, a lesson that we can always be reminded of in so many different scenarios in our lives, of that also too, of that effort of just showing up. It might not be the perfect way that you show up, but you showed up and you weren't too precious about it, that you didn't let something hold you back.
And let's talk about preciousness through the lens of feedback, right? So this is a scary stat, which I've shared on this podcast before. 58% of hiring managers who responded to a survey this year said that they don't want to hire anyone from the cohort of recent college graduates. Well, I have 2 kids that are in that cohort, so I hate hearing that, right? But also I hate hearing it because I know I'm so much better at what I do because I spend time with people in their 20s every day. I'm so much better at that because of you and because of the diversity of age that I've got around me, diversity of lots of different things I've got around me. But the reality is that there's some tough things for this generation that's coming out to face. They've been raised to think that they're the king of the world by parents that were either helicopter or steamroller parents. They got a participant ribbon just for showing up. Your feelings and your individualism is the most important thing. We were taught in previous generations that collective success was more important. Now we're taught your success is the most important. Your work-life balance, your needs, wants, desires are the most important. And the reaction is that what we're seeing is sometimes younger people are showing up in the workplace who cannot receive feedback. They're proving to be uncoachable, which for me is someone who simply can't work for me, right? Because our environment that used to be part of at the chamber, that I'm running at the chamber, is dynamic, and we have to be coachable. I have to be coachable. Our board has to be coachable so that we can adapt and change to what we're doing. And that means showing up and saying, how did I do? Can I have some frank feedback about that? And I'll be honest, the feedback for me hasn't always been positive as a podcast host. I've had a huge learning curve, and I really appreciate y'all sticking with me as I went through that learning curve. But I'm so proud of learning how to do something new. And one of my favorite moments of the podcast was when we had Craig DeLonge in here, who at the moment is our top performing episode on YouTube. 71,000 views of that episode. And we're going to get to this part in a minute, about how to dress, how a man can build a wardrobe with 10 pieces, right? And when I think about that, Craig came in, he's a longtime Laurel Chamber member, and he came into the studio and he said, so this is what you're doing now instead of running the chamber? And I said, no, Craig, this is the chamber. More people will connect with you on this podcast than have ever heard about you through an event I've run at the chamber. And he said, huh. And so the idea that we're able to do something better, faster, stronger in this new delivery model for our region, for our audience who's global now, and for certainly Winter Park and the chamber members is really rewarding. So let's talk for a minute about Craig's episode. Let's talk about Fiona Ruby's episode and what some of our takeaways are from those.
Yeah. So we are numbers ladies. So we love to look at a dashboard. We love to see, how is this performing? What can we do to optimize this episode more here? And so we're paying attention to that, of what are the episodes that are best performing to us. And the two episodes that have been the best performing are around how to dress and how to style yourself to stand out in the business world.
And to build trust and credibility.
Mm-hmm. And what has fascinated me is that at the chamber, we're extremely unique convening places where we're hearing from employees and employers across different events and programs of what they're experiencing, what are their challenges. And it has emerged to us across multiple interactions that some of the biggest gaps is how people dress. And there are expectations from the employer sides and hesitations from the employee sides that are causing tension that doesn't—
a giant gap.
Giant gap. And that is where we are able to come in and help provide a place for understanding, where we can hear from both sides, where we can try to figure out what that solution is. What is the give and take that needs to come from each one? But what this has shown me is that employers are looking for, how do you show up in my workplace? And one of the easiest ways to signal that trust, to signal that reliability, is how you dress. And what you can also take away from this is that if you do it, you're going to stand out, because they are looking for it.
Let's talk about when you came to the chamber and you got to meet me. And let's face it, I'm a hard ass about professional attire as I'm sitting here in my jeans today. Talk about that experience and how, maybe bring along young listeners and viewers with us, and how much you probably didn't love that when you got there. Tell us what that was like.
I mean, it's one, of course, I wish that I could show up in my leggings and a sweatshirt every single day. That's how I hang out in my home. But with it too, of that we never know when a board member is going to walk in. We never know when someone else is going to be in our universe that we need to signal trust and credibility to.
Like an elected official.
The mayor could walk into our office at any time, and you need to be able to walk downstairs and greet them.
Yep.
And that's an extremely important part of our business. And that can be applied to any business situation that you are in, of making sure that you're always ready to take that client meeting, to make sure that you're never working against yourself in that sales situation. And I remember coming in and really you start looking at other people in the office.
She's going to be honest now,
and you
y'all.
go, how do I show up? How do I dress? So I'd come from my master's program where business casual was required for every class that you went to. So I'd started building that muscle, started figuring out what I felt comfortable in and my style. But then it was a whole nother level when I came into the chamber, and it was good. It pushed me. It made me start thinking about how to dress my calendar, how to show up more professionally. You mentioned that today we're both sitting here in jeans, but because what we're doing is different than what we are doing in our office day to day. And we are really strategic about how we dress. And it's one of the ways that I signaled credibility to you when I came into the office. If I said, I see the culture that you've set, I'm respecting it and I'm engaging in it, and I'm going to show up appropriately for all of the activities that we have.
And 3 years later, we made you chief marketing officer because I knew I could trust you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm really passionate about this. Not because I love clothes. In fact, the only thing I really don't like doing about this podcast is organizing what I'm going to wear on it. I really don't. And it's a stressful thing for me. And if you've noticed, we've tried a bunch of things and some have worked and some have worked horribly. Please don't go back and look at try to figure out which ones those are. But I really do believe that clothes are a very important nonverbal cue about who you are, what you care about, right? So it was funny. I went to Seasons 52 last night, which is a chain restaurant here in Central Florida. And I noticed that they had everyone working there in a black t-shirt and black pants. And I thought, that was a really great call, because what you're signaling is uniformity. You know who the servers are. It's visible who they are. They're all wearing a name tag and black shirt, black t-shirt, black pants. And I thought, that's an affordable way for the people that work there to acquire work professional clothes. It's a great identifiable way for people to know who the server is. And it's not the most glamorous thing, but it's a little elevated in that it's not an apron and it's not a TGI Fridays bow tie or whatever. It's clean and edited, like the menu and the experience itself. And I was really studying that last night, because it doesn't take a lot of money in order for you to be successful at projecting the image of professionalism. If you're wearing that uniform to work and you work in a restaurant, make sure it doesn't have any food stains on it. Make sure it doesn't have a bleach stain on it. Make sure that it's pressed and ironed, and that you're showing people that you can be trusted with the little things, because when you're trusted with the little things, then you get to be trusted with the big things. So I love that Addie talked about that experience, because it probably wasn't fun when you got to the chamber. And I basically said, what you were wearing in business school, you're gonna have to take that up a notch, right? Mm-hmm. And I think young people don't want to be told that. They want to be doing things on their terms, aligned with their individuality. And it doesn't help that the Wall Street Journal came in and said this year, hey, we're going back to work in the office, but it's okay if you want to wear your pajamas or a crop top. Well, you can, but you're not going to get promoted or hired in any organization I run if that's the case. So I love you talking about how you didn't like it at first, but look what you've gained and learned from that. Tell us a little bit more about that conversion.
Well, I always think about the equation of, is the cost of me not putting on that blazer this morning worth the cost of me not being where I want to be in my career in a year?
Because we've met someone that doesn't want to wear the blazer and is like, I'm ready to quit over the blazer, right?
Yeah, and
quit over the blazer.
And to me, I'm like, that equation doesn't work in my head. And if that's something where that is worth it for you, then probably the work environment you're in is not the right work environment for you. And you need to go find what is the right place for you to work. That is also how you can authentically show up, is say, this isn't the right work environment for me.
But equally, I'd challenge that. And I would say, what you are projecting to yourself and your workplace by quitting over a blazer says to some people that you're not a serious person, that you're not willing to be made uncomfortable in order to meet and align with the goals of the organization. And that's where we're seeing things like being too precious. And that's why I love that when we focus on the B-side to people's records, it was a photographer that came in here and helped us focus on how to not be too precious. So if wearing a blazer is such a deal breaker for you, you need to be thinking about what sacrifices you're willing to make in order to advance your career, because there's no one on this podcast that could come on here and say, I'm really successful and I did everything my way, just the way I wanted it, right? We've all had to dig through the Shawshank prison with a spoon to get to where we are. And for me, I've talked about this, I think one of the traps, and we've talked about the trap, is that when I came into the world of work, I was told you can wear a suit with a skirt, pantyhose, and a heel in the one of three colors, gray, black, or navy blue. And I hated that. It was so straitjacketed. I was like, where's the chance for me to show up as a human in all of this, right? Well, there wasn't. I mean, I could, but it took me a lot longer. And now I love that I can express my individuality with my clothes a bit more, but that's because I have a brand to leverage. And when I did leverage it, it's funny because somebody said to me, I said, oh God, I wish I could wear jeans all the time at the office. And someone said to me, spoiler alert, Betsy, you're the boss.
Mhm.
And I said, there's no way I can do that. The first day I have a board member come in and I'm in jeans, they're thinking, well, Betsy's an unserious person. She's not here to build trust between the board and her stakeholders and her. And that's the calculus I'm making when I'm making choices about clothing. It's not about fashion or style. It's about how can I make sure that if all you ever get is one look at me, that you think that's somebody I could trust, right? And sometimes that is all we ever get, is that one look of somebody. And we want that one look to convey, yeah, we're successful here for a reason. It's because we do the little things well, so we get to do the big things well. Any other comments on that? I love that even when we went to London and shot 3 episodes in London, and we learned from Juliette Mayhew, who's a real housewife of London, a very successful businesswoman, an actor, an entertainer, you know, the thing that shaped her was growing up as the child of medical missionaries, right? And so this kind of supersizing of people's humanity, powering their later success. Fiona Ruby brings a sense of joy to the whole art of dressing, and she's dressing people in high stakes environments like King Charles' coronation, royal weddings, fashion shoot covers for Vogue, In Style magazine, etc., dressing high profile people for red carpet moments. And yet she understands clearly that there's a theatrical component to this where we need to telegraph what we need to send as signals to engender trust. Talk about some of that and what your reaction is to it.
I loved the episodes that you did in London because I got the opportunity to see so much more of your B side and who
my
you
B-side
are.
Is my London side.
Is of who you are when you're London Betsy, which it was so wonderful to see that. And that you went and shot those episodes by yourself. So you flew to London, you went to a podcast studio we didn't know. They partnered with our team back here in Central Florida, and you put yourself out there in a brand new way. And I have loved watching you do that throughout this entire process of how you have been able to continually put yourself out there, try new things, and be willing to learn from those experiences of what worked, what didn't work. And when I think so much too around building trust and credibility is that, one, your team has trust that you can go off and do something.
Can you believe it, y'all? They trusted me. I could go show up at the studio and do this all by myself.
Through that, but we have also built this trust and credibility across our partners that also our podcast studio trusts us that we're going to go somewhere else and create something that they can put their name to as well.
Yeah.
And so much of that is in the way that we are thoughtful about everything that we're doing. And it comes down to the simple things of what shoes did you wear to do that? What shoes did you choose to wear that day versus what
I chose
did you
to wear a scarf that day because I was so cold and I look like I'm getting eaten alive by it. But yeah.
But then it also goes to the trust that you are going to follow up with the client, that you are going to make sure that everyone has what they need, that all of those, that same brand message is telegraphed through every experience that someone has with you and that someone has with our team. And that's how we're able to do the incredible things that we do.
Well, I've been so grateful for all the ways that you helped get us to this point. We're excited about what you're doing next. More on that later. But I want to go back to the distillation of season 1, and I want to do it through the lens of my grandmother. What are the most simple things that we're going to be taking from season 1, focusing on season 2? And I think they're clustering around 3 things that have emerged over and over and over again. The other thing we forgot to talk about is on almost every episode, someone talks about their mom. Did you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
Their mom, which shout out to the moms. I am a mom. I love that. So I think the areas we'll be focusing on, still focusing on people's B side, but getting even more granular and intentional about it, are around having a sense of presence, whether that's through clothes, posture, vocal intonation, public speaking, having a presence on LinkedIn. You should be doing one of 3 things every week on LinkedIn: sharing a piece of content, commenting on a piece of content, or liking a piece of content, and really ideally posting your own content, but I know that's advanced level
Well, the
stuff.
stat that we just learned was that only 3% of LinkedIn users are posting content. Posting. Think about how you can change how you show up online by becoming you will stand out if you post, because only 3% of people are posting.
It's a lot of recycled content on there, right? And so if you're creating original content like, hey, I want to talk today about butterflies, then you're going to stand out. It doesn't have to be what I did at my HR meeting this morning, right? It can be you as a person. So we encourage you to do that. But that's having a sense of presence, whether you want to public speak or not. We know that's not for everybody. But that's having a presence on LinkedIn. That's being intentional about showing up and commenting and tagging someone in your comment. So that comes back to your feed as well. It's real simple stuff. And so having a sense of presence through how you show up digitally, how you present yourself in real life with respect to, is what you're wearing building trust? Is your speech confident? Is it measured? Are you taking your time to compose your thoughts before you speak so that you don't have audible pauses? Are you, organizing agendas in advance so that people know that your sense of presence precedes you before you go into that room? These are all ways that we can have a sense of presence. Then I think we've got to build up musculature around judgment. So we have so much information coming at us that we have to be better and better practitioners of filtering and deciding whether or not that is true, whether or not it's factual, whether or not it's relevant, whether or not it's brand aligned. Those are all things we have to do now and exercise good judgment. So as we navigate this world of so much information and so much of it elegantly distilled through ChatGPT or other AI tools, how do we become the people that exercise good judgment so that when we do that, we build trust and we move beyond transactional into transformational, and that becomes relational. So presence, judgment, and trust. So we want to be working on presence and judgment so that we can consistently and intentionally build trust. Because when trust is there, honestly, business walks in on its own 2 feet and you don't even have to feel like it's work, right? So talk to us about what you're excited about as our correspondent moving into season 2 in terms of those 3 themes for next year or this year for what we're going to be bringing to our audience this year.
I am so excited to dive into those themes. I think they will be transformational in so many different elements of people's lives. What I'm most excited to dive into is judgment. So I think it can sometimes feel like you're born with good judgment or you're not, but really it's a muscle that you can build. It can be looking around the world that you're in of who can you go to help you gain that better judgment? What are the filters and the filters that they're using to look at situations so that you start training yourself to use those too? There are so many ways that you can build that so that you become the person who's trusted, that you become the person that people are coming to know as that's somebody with great judgment. I know that they can handle that situation because how they are going to approach it is meaningful, it's intentional, and I know that in the end, it's going to work out for us.
Well, and I love that as a way to catapult around the biases that are out there, particularly against young people. You've got a chance to supersize your presence, judgment, and trust. And when you do, that 58% of people who don't want to hire you might now want to hire you, want to work with you, want to promote you. And what we've proven, especially through Addie's hard work, is I don't care what your age is. If I can trust you and you're delivering work that aligns with our goals and visions, I don't care what age you are. And actually, I love that you're younger because you do it all faster and with better technology than I could. So I'm really excited about the ways that we are going to provide more virtual mentoring, that we're going to be even more simplified in our approach to these 3 themes, which I think are more relevant than ever. We've all heard about AI for years. It's exciting. It's great. It's a really great tool to help us save time and get to the point faster. But it's a very scary piece of technology that, let's face it, erodes trust. We've talked about the death of the M-dash because we like using M-dash in our our communication. But now if you've got an M dash in there, it's an immediate trust killer because people will think, oh, ChatGPT, which loves an M dash, wrote this piece of content for you. So now we're going through our content and pulling M dashes out because we want to make sure that we're building and engendering trust. So it's time for us to become advanced practitioners of presence, judgment, and trust. And we know that exploring the B side to people's records in season 2 is going to help us become even better at that. So I want to thank Addie for being with us today. Any parting thoughts?
Yes, I want to challenge our audience to comment on an episode. So there are so many, listen, we will benefit from it too. I'm going to put that out there, but also this is your easy opportunity in that first step to showing up in a community in a new way in 2026 so that you start connecting, that you start making the rest of the audience know that you're somebody who listens to the Be Student podcast. You have insights about what we are talking about, and that is going to start building the community where people recognize you. They understand the brand that you're putting forward digitally. That is the first step towards presence, is showing up beyond just a like. We want to hear your thoughts, and we know that the rest of our community wants to hear them too and get to know you. And so I challenge you that whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram, to comment on at least one episode in this first quarter of the year.
I love it. Something actionable and small that you can do that will help elevate your presence. Okay, so here we go. We are in season 2. We thank you for joining us. We can't wait to deliver more meaningful content through the Be Student podcast this year. If you like this episode, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thanks for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Be Student podcast.